Hello, you're listening to Wait, How Do You Spell That? A Rare Disease podcast. My name is Colby, and I'm the editor here at Patient Worthy. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. And today, we're going to be discussing multiple myeloma. That's a rare form of cancer that develops in a type of white blood cell called a plasma cell. Plasma cells help fight infections by making antibodies that recognize and attack infection. And to help in our discussion today, I'm happy to say we have a very special guest. Keisha Hickson is a professional speaker and community advocate who was diagnosed with multiple myeloma in 2016. Since then, Keisha has been sharing her story of resilience and survivorship with others and inspiring them to live their lives with a new sense of purpose. Keisha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Kobe, for having me.
Thank you so much for taking the time. We're really glad to have you on the show today. And to start off with, would you mind sharing some more information about multiple myeloma for those who may not be familiar with the condition?
Sure. So multiple myeloma, as you mentioned, is a rare incurable disease of the plasma cells, which lives within the bone marrow. It mostly affects the African-American community and mostly in males over ages of 68 or so. And yes, I'm not a male, and I was only 38 when I was diagnosed, but that is statistically the population that is mostly affected by multiple myeloma.
Right. So already a rare blood cancer, and then you were a particularly rare case within that as well. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background then? Like you said, you were diagnosed before 40 in 2016. So tell us about your life at the time.
I mean, prior to being diagnosed with multiple myeloma, at that time, I had a thriving career in the financial industry. At that time, I worked for the same company for about 20 years. I live and grew up in the New York City area. At the time of diagnosis, my daughter was 8 years old. I have one daughter, and I was also married. So for my life was pretty much like the status quo. I went to college. I got married. I had a child. I had this wonderful career. I moved to the suburbs. I was just going along with the all-American dream until that fateful day when I got the news. Everything was pretty much status quo for me.
And one of the factors about multiple myeloma that can lead to a delay in diagnosis, which we know is so common in rare diseases, is that the symptoms can look like other health issues from the outset. So things like bone pain, fatigue, and infection, among other symptoms. When did you first know that something was wrong?
To be 100% honest with you, at least 2 years leading up to when I found out I had subtle symptoms like chronic fatigue. I was tired all the time, but I worked a lot, right? So I worked like 10-hour days. My travel time at the time was like an hour and a half back and forth to work, and I had a young child at home. So a lot of things I just attributed to being overworked, tired, not exercising enough, not eating right. And then in 2016, I suffered a fall at my home. Just playing around, I slipped and I suffered a little fall. I hurt my elbow and the pain would just not let up. And I was like, had some mobility in the arm, not a lot. It was my left elbow. So I was like, I need to go to the doctor. So I went to the doctor thinking it'll be like a little x-ray. I strained something. The doctor said to me, you're young, you're only 38. It's hard for you to break that bone. She goes, but I'm going to take an x-ray anyway. She takes the x-ray. I come out the x-ray room. The look on this doctor's face was like she saw a ghost. And she was like, you have to go see an orthopedic doctor. I found one for you. And this is Martin Luther King weekend. This is the Sunday of Martin Luther King's weekend. She found a doctor for me to go see on Monday, which was the most businesses are closed. And I remember telling her, okay, calm down. Like, what could this possibly be? But she couldn't say at the time. She probably had an idea that something really was wrong, but she couldn't say. And that's what started it. So if I never fell, I don't know how much longer I would have found out that I had multiple myeloma. Because at the time of diagnosis, my bone marrow was 70% already cancerous. So that means I had it for a while. Because one thing we didn't mention, that there's a smoldering stage to multiple myeloma, where it's like smoldering and 1%, every year 1% activates into full cancer. So all the times that I was feeling tired or slight bone pain, putting it off as, I'm just working too hard or whatever, that was the cancer brewing all these years. And also was anemic for a very long time. And there's no real way to pinpoint when you contracted multiple myeloma because it's environmental.
Right.
And prior to the fall, I've never had any full body imaging that they can say, let's say in 2014, we did some type of X-ray imaging and we see no lesions. To 2016, now we see a change. So we could see where the window when the cancer activated, right? Prior to having my daughter, I was never hospitalized for anything. And I went to the doctor every year. I got my routine blood work, mammogram, pap smear, all those things. But multiple myeloma is one of those diseases, unless you are complaining about something or they're specifically looking for it, that's not part of a regular blood panel, right? An annual exam panel is just not.
And no visible symptoms as well to let you know that something was wrong.
Right. I wasn't losing weight. I was not losing weight. I was just tired and fatigued, and that was normal. I thought that was just normal, right? But but I look back, even the way how we deal with when we're not feeling well, and my whole stance about complacency, how we become comfortable and don't really push the envelope, transcends our health also. Let's think about how many times, oh, my back is hurting, I'm just going to exercise, and instead of actually going to the doctor and getting some type of imaging or having a medical professional look at it, we just kind of like brush it off.
Right.
And it could really be something else brewing.
Yeah. Something serious, which was your experience. Yeah.
So to your question, no, I didn't have, I had symptoms, but not enough for me to feel like something was wrong. And again, I was going to the doctor at least twice a year for my annual exams, right? To check my cholesterol, my blood pressure, those things, and nothing never came up.
So this initial contact you had with your doctor about your elbow, she got you rushed in, over a holiday weekend to see a doctor on Monday. What was that experience like? How did you proceed from there?
Oh my God. So when I go see this doctor, Dr. Patel, I would never forget him. He's in the Park Slope area. I show up on Monday. He's an orthopedic surgeon. So I was led to believe like it's going to need some type of surgery. So I went to him. He did another X-ray in his office. He says it could be two things. Something about calcium buildup where you have to go in and clean it out and re-cement it, X, Y, and Z. But he says, I want you to go take an MRI. So that's Tuesday. He scheduled an MRI for me on Tuesday. So in the mix of that, for the past 20 years, I've been under a care of a hematologist because I have a clotting factor. So anytime I need to go to surgery, they have to take me off the blood thinner, right? Because I can bleed out. So they got to reverse the blood thinner. I go to surgery and then they put me back on the blood thinner. So that Tuesday morning on my way to the MRI, I called my hematologist, Dr. Hyde. I said, Dr. Hyde, this happened. I may have to have surgery. I need to start reversing the blood thinner. She goes, okay. When you come back from the MRI, come to my office. Let me start taking the blood test to see where you are, X, Y, and Z. So Tuesday, I leave the MRI office. I go see her. She takes the blood work. We talk about what's going on. She goes, okay, Keisha, let me know. That Thursday, I have to go back and see Dr. Patel. It was a winter day. It was cold as I don't know what. So I had bought a sling for my left arm. So I walked into his office and he sits me down. And he goes, Keisha, I don't know you, but I know that you're a straight shooter. He says to me, something significantly is wrong with you. I made an appointment for you to go to see an orthopedic oncologist at Mount Sinai on Monday. And I was like, okay, because it's not all coming together yet. So I leave his office. He gives me the referral. I go to the front desk to pay the copay. And I had a $50 bill. On the first appointment. The young lady didn't have change. So I start to get hot, because I'm playing the conversation back in my mind and I start sweating like profusely. I told her, keep the change. By lunch, I'm leaving because I had to go outside. And I just remember standing in the middle of the street and I heard orthopedic oncologist. I just started screaming in the middle of the street. Because now all the dots are coming together. He's telling me I have a bone cancer. I just started screaming in the middle of the street. Anyway, I pull myself together. I go to work. I was in banking and that was the beginning of our sales year. So I was like, I'm happy I have to go on disability. Let me go to work and do the year-end reviews, right? Because it's January. I got to take care of last year. So I don't want another manager to have to come in and take over my team and give them their reviews and sit with them. So I start working on it immediately. In the mix of all of that, I called this doctor back. I was like, I just want to be clear on what we talked about. He said, Keisha, something significantly is wrong with you. I said, okay. 2 hours later, Dr. Hyde calls me. She goes, Keisha, I got to talk to you. Okay. She goes, can you talk right now? I said, sure. She goes, I'm sorry, but you have multiple myeloma. Okay, what is that? So I turn around, I go to my computer, and I start typing it in, and what pops up? A rare incurable cancer of the plasma cells.
Mm-hmm. ...
3 to 5 years to live.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh no, this can't be right. So her office in the downtown Brooklyn area is 4 blocks from my branch. I was like, I'm coming to the office. She was closed that day. I'm coming to the office. So she lives in a brownstone. She lives upstairs and the office is on the ground level. She opens up and I come inside. She goes, Keisha, I'm sorry. She goes, but this is what it is. I said, okay. We cried a little bit because she's known me since I was pregnant, right? That's when I initially met her. So anyway, she goes, well, we have to do a biopsy. She goes, I don't want to do it in the office because, I mean, the audience can't really see me, but I'm 5'8". I'm a little stocky. She's a little woman. She was like, I don't want to do the biopsy in the office because, you know, I don't do many of them. She refers me out to Cornell and it confirms I have multiple myeloma. Mm. Yeah. I forgot the question, but that's what happened.
No, that was the question of what your journey was like with your diagnosis. And they were hustling to try to figure out what this was. And
No, they did.
Yeah. And that's great that you had such a great relationship with your doctor that you could rely on her to get that information right away. Like you said, this is incurable. So it's something that people who have it, they have to live with. It's ongoing treatment. This is another factor that people, if they know about multiple myeloma, they might not be aware with it, but people live with it for a long time. It can be slow to progress. People respond differently to treatments. That means that each person's journey is unique. You've been living with it for 8 years now. Would you mind telling us about what treatment has been like? What has your journey been like with this?
Of course. Like you mentioned, multiple myeloma is different for every person. There are more aggressive types of myeloma and non-aggressive, right? People secrete the M protein, some don't. Some also have chromosomal depletions that make it a little bit more complicated to treat. So for my journey, after initially reading, because when you originally get diagnosed with anything, we immediately go to WebMD. We are Google doctors, right? So you start reading all the things that are going to happen to you. Kidney failure, this is going to happen. Your liver's going to fail, this, that, and the third. So for me, I've definitely been blessed to have a team of doctors who were very vigilant about my care, right? Very much involved. They didn't miss a step. They were very soothing at times when I needed it. I'm not the patient that needs a lot of hand-holding. I need facts. I need facts and science on how we're going to get this done and how am I going to live through this. Early on, when I found out, I was like, oh no, I'm going to live. Like I had no choice. Like my daughter was 8 years old. The idea of being dead in between 3 to 5 years, that means I possibly would not have lived to see her graduate from junior high school. Mm-hmm. And that just was, I couldn't accept that, to leave her. So I just kind of like accepted it. And in my mind, I had to fight tooth and nail. Of course, I have my moments where you think about it and you cry about it. What about this? What about that? But multiple myeloma is one of those cancers where I don't even know how I got it. It's not like I missed my mammogram or I smoked cigarettes. I was exposed to a chemical somewhere along the lines and it developed into this cancer. So I put aside the where did I get it from? How can this happen? It happened. Right? So I went to what's called the induction therapy, which is the first line of defense, right? I was going to chemo twice a week and I had to take a steroid called dexamethasone at the time, right? That was the induction therapy in 2016. I went through that for 6 months. I responded well to the treatment. I was physically sick, like a lot of side effects, upset stomach, nausea, memory loss, like fatigue, but the myeloma numbers were moving down quickly. And great. To me, that outweighed how sick I was because I could deal with nausea, take Ativan, like drink ginger ale, whatever. The name of the game for me was to get the disease under control because everything I read about it is to keep it suppressed. You always have the clone. There's always cells in your body with myeloma. The name of the game is to have it suppressed. So I also had radiation on my arm because how my arm, when I fell, the myeloma had affected my elbow and part of the forearm bone, so it cracked. Even though I didn't hit the floor that hard, it was just compromised and it cracked. So they gave me radiation on the arm. I went through the induction therapy. I did well. The next step after that is something they call harvest your stem cells, because the next phase of treatment is a stem cell transplant.
Mm-hmm.
So when they got the disease under control and they felt like I was stable enough, they harvest my stem cells. So at that time, I was going to Cornell. And after the doctor got the disease under control and he harvested my stem cells, he says to me, well, now we're going to wait and see. I was like, wait and see? Absolutely not. But now I understand this is a wait and see type of disease. But back then, no, I need somebody on it every month because I'm coming here for treatment every month. I need to know every month. So I left Cornell and I went to Sloan. And I met another doctor, Dr. Envine. And my initial appointment with her, I didn't want to go have the stem cell transplant just yet because it's not a cure. So in my mind, my non-doctor medical mind, I was going to wait until I relapsed, get it under control, and then go to transplant. So I took along one of my best friends who's a doctor. She's not an oncologist, but I figured if this doctor wasn't saying the right thing, she's going to be like, help me like navigate whatever the doctor is saying.
Translate in some cases.
But she's not even an oncologist, so it was really pointless. But anyway, she comes along with me. And I told the doctor, I'm not going to transplant. I'm going to wait. She says to me and looks at my friend, if you were my sister, you'll be going to transplant.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why. I was like, okay, if you recommend it, I'll go. So the next January 2017, I went to transplant. And that's an arduous ordeal, to say the least. Because I'm not sure how the audience knows, but the stem cell transplant, the type of chemo they give you kills every cell in your body. Your immune, your immunization shots, it kills everything in your body. You're very, very sick for a couple of days. So I went through that process, came home. I actually left the hospital in 12 days. Normally, most patients in the hospital close to a month. My body recovered quickly and I came home in 12 days. And then you have another biopsy to see that they achieved to bring the disease down further. When I came out of transplant, I was still less than 5%. So I was devastated. I felt like I did all of that for nothing, right? I should just followed my first mind.
Mm-hmm.
But then as you learn more and you ask the proper questions, you realize it helps you stay in remission longer.
Mm-hmm. So
me having the transplant in 2016, is that one of the contributing factors to why I've been in remission for so long? I know nobody really knows, right? It's not really a science type of thing.
Right.
But so there's no way for me to attribute to having the transplant early on. Is it really helped me sustain this long? Mm-hmm. But whatever the reason is, I'm grateful that I did do it. Because I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait. And she was like, no. And I've been able to maintain to be less than 5% over the past 8 years. I had a scare. Thank you. I had a scare last year, though, where when I went to have the annual biopsy, it went to 10%. And to be honest, it kind of like paralyzed me in a way because the thought of knowing I may have to change my treatment after all this time. And I live well on the treatment. Yes, I'm stick to my stomach, but I can still navigate the world after they switch the drug. How am I going to respond going to treatment so often? Am I still going to be able to live the way that I live now? Mm-hmm. It kind of took me back for a few weeks last year, but I kind of just powered through. And when they retook the biopsy this year, I'm back down to less than 5%.
Great.
Thank you.
And that's learning to be a patient. It's a learning curve. It's something that we often hear about when we talk to other cancer patients or people who are living with a chronic illness. It's a frame shift of what you thought your life was before to now living with this thing that's going to be with you for a long time. And there is a learning curve to learning how to be a patient. So it sounds like you were a great advocate for yourself and communicating with your doctors, bringing in people to help you understand. And tell us a little bit about how you kind of had to do that frame shift of learning to be a patient.
I think the first thing I really had to do is just really accept that this is my life. Mm-hmm. Right. And I talked about that a few minutes ago. I think the first way to deal with anything that's uncomfortable is just acknowledging where you are. and understanding the resources you need, how you can help yourself, and finding help outside. Managing a critical illness, you have to learn, if you didn't know, how to manage your emotions, how to help yourself cope through certain things. And when I talk to other patients, your friends and family, they want to be there for you. They want to sympathize with you, but their lives go on, and you're the one constantly faced in the mirror of this is what's happening, right? And in your quiet moments when no one is around, like you said, I didn't imagine that my life would be living with multiple myeloma, a rare disease, especially no one in my family has no type of cancer. I had to just accept that this has happened to me. This is my story, my journey, and choose to live the way I want to live, right? So my focal point has always been my daughter. What is going to be the legacy I leave for her? What is she going to remember? Who I want her, when she thinks about her mother, how I navigated through this, how does it make her feel? And her father and my mother. But that's always been like my North Star. Like I have to set the proper example for her, make sure I'm here for her. And if anything happens prematurely, she knows my mother fought to the end. I didn't fall, right? Because prior to this in life, there's so many other life events that happen that you have to navigate. This just happens to be my big one. But trust me, leading up to this, there was a few other things that is a big one for someone else.
Sure. And maybe an event that, your friends and family might not have experienced. Like you said, you don't have cancer really that runs in your family. So a little different than the type of challenges that people are used to experiencing. How do you feel like your family adjusted to this? How do you feel like your daughter adjusted to this big change, this big event in your life?
Like I mentioned, she was 8 years old at the time. And to be very honest, I kind of shielded her from it, right? She sensed something was going on, but I didn't sit down and have the big talk with her. And before I went to transplant, Sloan has a service where you sit with like a caseworker, a therapist, and they try to give you tips on how to navigate what's going to happen next. Because the transplant could go either way. Sometimes you come out with something else wrong with you.
It's risky.
Right. So if I had to be in the hospital for a prolonged time, what was the plan? And they gave me 2 books they wanted me to read to why I should have this big conversation with her. And I just choose not to because I know who my child is. And I didn't want her to worry, and school was still going on for her. I went to the school and I spoke with her principal, guidance counselor, to let them know that I'm going to be out of the home for a while and this is what's going on. I put provisions in place at the school that if she was having a moment of missing her mom, they would know why and how to help her and call her father or my grandmother to support her. My mother did not take it well. She did not take it well. My mother is up and retired from her job. And I was like, why are you doing that? Because I'm still going to work every day. Because I worked up until I went to transplant. I took off the 3 months because I had to, and I went back to work. So for the life of me, I couldn't understand why she wanted to retire. But to hear the C word and her daughter devastated her in her own way. And she felt like she wanted to retire to be there if I needed something or her granddaughter needed something. But I often tell her, no way in this journey, they said, I'm going to be hospitalized for 6 months. I'm going to hospice. So I don't know, but everybody dealt with it a little bit differently.
Right. That was her way of coping with it.
Right. And because I didn't exhibit, like I didn't lose my hair until the transplant. So the first year as I'm going through treatment, I still look the same. So for some of my family and friends, either they forgot or it was a way of them not dealing with it because I didn't have that look of someone being sick. I didn't lose a lot of weight. Nothing was happening. I was just going back and forth to the doctor. So some dealt with it, like my mother, did one extreme. Some kind of ignore it. And then sometimes I just don't talk about it because it's hard for me to manage my emotions and my close friends and family's emotions. Because then they want to cry and I don't really want to cry right now. So you learn to kind of like cope with it in your own way, so to speak. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What were some of the first signs then post-diagnosis where you felt like things were moving in a more positive direction, a little more under control, so to speak?
Honestly, when I responded well to the induction treatment, well, every week I would go and they would take blood work and my myeloma markers were going down. I just use it as a positive. I always look at the positive before the negative. Your mind and your thoughts play a huge part in any success, right? So I just always choose to concentrate on the positive. Yes, I'm nauseous. I'm throwing up all the time. My stomach is upset, but the cancer's under control. So I just lived on that. That's important to me. Every setback, I always look for the positive in that situation to keep me going. Because early on, when I met with one of the doctors, he was like, stop watching the news. Don't watch sad things to put you in a sad frame of mind. Mm-hmm. Watch comedy. I love the news. Like I can watch CNN on repeat for 3 hours. But he was like, stop watching the news. Mm-hmm. You don't realize how that plays into your mind and your thoughts, hearing this person got shot. There's a fire over here. Can you believe this is happening? You need to laugh a lot to keep your headspace in a happier, positive mode. Mm-hmm. I also got out the blogs. So initially, I was in every Facebook group, every blog. At that time, the T-card therapy was in clinical trials. So I was in those blogs because I'm like, one day I'm going to need this. So I better figure out what this is. Mm-hmm. But I had to come out the blogs after a while and the groups because it was all doom and gloom. No one was saying nothing positive. It was like, oh my God, can you believe I woke up today and my finger is hurting? That's not related.
Yeah. A little too much information, not a helpful amount of information. Yeah.
Right. And I choose not to fall into the pity party of it, right? Because the flip side of it, medical advancements has done a lot for multiple myeloma in only the 8 years I've been diagnosed. Yeah. At least 6 or 7 drugs have been approved since I've been diagnosed.
Yeah. And you mentioned CAR T therapy as well, being looked at for a lot of cancers, even solid tumors at this point, which is amazing to think about. Yeah. So
therapy or targeted treatment.
Yeah. And you've been living with this then for a while, 8 years now at this point. And I know you receive ongoing treatment to help keep the multiple myeloma under control then. Looking back then on these phases of your journey, diagnosis, treatment, ongoing survivorship, is there anything that you learned about yourself along the way that surprised you?
Definitely resilience, because this is a lifelong marathon. And it has definitely taught me that the journey is just as important as the destination. Every 2 weeks, I go to the doctors to get a chemo injection. There were times I was going every week. There was times where I was going every 2 weeks. We're talking several PET scans, biopsies. You just got to keep going. How I had to integrate ongoing treatment in my life. Like I just can't pick up and say, oh, I'm going to go to Mexico today. I have to make sure I reschedule my treatment. And early on, I used to have to go get tested for my white and red blood cells because if they were too low, I had to take a shot called Neupogen before I flew. I remember one of my friends turned 50 before the break, right after I got diagnosed, and I couldn't go to Thailand. My doctor was like, no. Mm-hmm. She was like, your immune system, I'm not sure. And the answer is no. So you have to make some adjustments along the way. But it just taught me it's nothing you can't do. It's nothing you can't do or withstand. Once you understand, you have a clear plan and you have the proper support, it's nothing that you cannot do. You'd be amazed of how strong your mind and body will withstand. Yes, there's moments where you feel like you want to break down, but you have to keep your eye on the prize. And the eye on the prize for me was living and being there for my daughter, right? So that is ultra important. Everybody has to have a goal and a plan. Just keep looking forward. With every detour, just keep looking forward. And that's what I've learned. And that's what I try to share with others, especially those living with cancer, whether it's multiple myeloma or anything else. You have to keep your eye on the prize. And it's life after cancer. There's life during cancer. Right? It all keeps going. And this journey and meeting people from different walks of life in different states, coming from New York and the career that I had, or my spouse, has afforded me the opportunity not to think about healthcare. I've yet to go to the doctor and someone says, oh, we can't give you treatment. Oh, it's not covered. Your copay is $3,000. all of that adds on to the stress of when you're dealing with any type of critical illness, any type of illness. So I'm grateful that that's something that I didn't have to face, because as I meet people from all across the United States, they're faced with that.
The insurance angle and finances and an extra weight on top of everything else.
Because I used to think that Medicaid was a universal program. It's not. But the way Medicaid is in New York State is in Ohio, and it's not, right? So that's one layer that I personally didn't have to deal with, and I'm grateful for that. Right? When your medication is costing upwards of $60,000 a month, and I don't even have to think about it, insurance has covered it, and I'm grateful for that. And I hope one day to pay that forward to become part of some type of bill or universal health care, so the next person who is facing cancer, because we didn't buy it. I didn't go to the store asking for it. It just happened as American citizens that we are afforded proper health care.
Right. And to that end, too, I know you are helping people. That is one part of your mission. You've taken these chapters of your life, your long history as an entrepreneur, the experiences you've had with your health challenges, and you now help others by sharing your story. Can you talk about your experiences as a speaker and a community advocate?
Initially, I started talking about my story just to talk about multiple myeloma is so rare because I never heard of it. And in the title doesn't say cancer, like breast cancer, colon cancer. You don't even know what it is. So I started speaking more about it, especially in the African American community, because most people I've spoken to do not know what multiple myeloma is. Just to let them be aware. If something feels off in your body, mention it to your healthcare provider. Don't just say, oh, I'm tired. Or even if you go to him and they do some type of diagnostic test and the pain has not subsided or you're not feeling better, see someone else, ask more questions. Because we tend to become very complacent in our health. Like, oh, I'm just tired, I'm getting older, I need to get more sleep. Be vigilant in feeling your best, right? Because something can be brewing underlying. So it's just started off me just sharing my story and giving others hope that I have this rare incurable cancer, but this is what I'm doing, and you can do it too. Your journey may not be cancer, it may be something else, divorce, it can be financial hardship, loss of your parent, but life moves forward. And how do you equip yourself with the tools to live the life that you want to live, right? Because like you said, life goes on. So that has been really great. Being in banking for 26 years, I opened up my first business in 2017. And that was a way of me being proactive in case I had to stop working. And I wanted my legacy to be more of, I just worked for this bank for 27 years. It also put me in the mind frame of everything that was on my, what I call my one day and someday list. I had a short window to start executing on it. So I always wanted to own my own business. I thought I would be retired and I would open up like a real estate holding company or something. Now I feel like I got to get everything done right now because I have 3 to 5 years. So that pushed me to start my first business in 2017. And that business did really, really well. I had 2 locations. It's a children's salon in Brooklyn. The pandemic came along. We were home for 9 months. And even during for 3 months, for 90 days, I was in the house. So the pandemic also taught me a valuable thing about living with a critical illness. During the pandemic, one was the first time being a New Yorker that the city went on pause. No movement. There's no money coming in and out. The streets are empty. 9/11, I went back to work 9/12. The blackout, I went back to work the next day. We never shut the city down. I was shut down. No one's making money. During that time was really difficult for us New Yorkers and around the world. Like so many people were dying every day from COVID. And I remember my medical team called and was like, do not come back outside. They also suspended my treatment because I'm stable. They said, we only want patients coming if they have to come. You stay home. To see perfectly healthy people not make it through COVID, for me was like, you have this critical illness, but you're here for a purpose. Because the way the news was going, I'm overweight, I'm immunocompromised, I have cancer. If I contract COVID, I'm not going to make it. So during that time, it also taught me like, your path is already paved for you from a spiritual standpoint, right? Your path is already paved for you. You're here for a reason. You have to execute on that reason, right? Share your story, impact others. During that time, I developed a skincare company called Survivant, which means survivor in French. Because here is another thing that I got to survive, which is COVID. right? So Servivant Collections was birthed during COVID because no one was making money. Now I have to figure out e-commerce. Like I'm more of a brick and mortar type of person. I like to see my customer, touch my customer. So that forced me out of my comfort zone to start an e-commerce business, Servivant. And that's what it really taught me. Like life moves forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is one topic that you're particularly passionate about. We were talking in the prep for this episode, this issue of complacency. You mentioned it earlier, realizing that life is happening now. This is what you've been talking about the whole time. Can you expand then on this idea for us?
The high cost of complacency, that was my first signature talk, right? For me, after being diagnosed in 2016, you sit down and you look back on your life, all the things that you kind of put off, or you just get comfortable in this spot, right? So when I started working in the financial industry, I was supposed to be on my way to law school. I went to take this job at the bank as just like, I need a job, right? I need a job to help me pay my tuition. Hopefully, I could find a way for this bank to help pay part of my tuition as I move forward in my law degree. And I started as a part-time employee, and my career kind of took off. Like I became a salesperson. I took my series exams, life insurance, health insurance, and I became this amazing salesperson. And I started making money. And now the dreams of me going to law school is like, oh, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. I'll get to it. Then life happened. I got married. I had a child, moved to the suburbs, and my career is moving forward. Moving forward, yes, but only in retail banking. So I was there for 26 years. So it made me so comfortable that other opportunities came along within the company that I didn't pursue because I knew exactly what was going to happen every day I came to work. I was on autopilot. Life was good. I was making money. I was on autopilot. Now this happens. So all the things that I put off, like I'm going to get to it one day, someday. Now I have a short window to do all the things that I want to do. And I still can't do everything that I put off because the list is long. We all have those one days and some days lists. And it could be something as minor as cleaning out the closet, converting the garage into a man cave, or I want to go back to school, or I want to try to work in a different department. And I just sat back and think about all the things that I put off, right? So there's complacency. There is this whole idea of us just wanting to be comfortable, right? You start a job, you move up a little bit, you're making the salary that you want to make, that you thought that you wanted to make. And now I'm just comfortable. I just sit here and I just do this one thing day in and day out because now I'm comfortable. And I do want to learn something else, but I'm scared to make that shift. Suppose I'm not as successful over here as I am where I'm at right now. And why think more? Why put myself out there to, oh, maybe she doesn't know how to really run this department, or I'm not as good as this thing. So we just kind of sit here. So then there's that whole idea of I just want to be comfortable. And our words have power, right? Think about it. I want to move to a new home. I just want to be comfortable. I need to move to this state to work for this company. But nobody really talks about the cost of just wanting to be comfortable, right? The professional and personal cost of that, right? Not improving on your skills, not meeting new people, not having new experiences, not even expanding on your thought process, right? And it could be something very simple as learning a second language, learning photography. The cost of that one thing you always wanted to do that you didn't do. And then comes in the regret. When something happens, you feel like, damn, why didn't I do that when I had the time? Because now you don't have the time. And through all of the work that I've done in the past 8 years and taking into account myself being a sales manager of this financial institution for so long, I came up with the framework, Dare to Change, right? Dare to Change. You got to weigh staying the same when trying. If you don't try, you're never going to know. So Dare to Change. And something I did recently. So I've been putting off learning how to swim for like 30 years because I had an episode at a water park when I was a kid and I refused to learn how to swim. Mm-hmm. So you gotta talk the talk and walk the walk. So this summer I'm taking some lessons.
That's great. Right? And it's a great form of exercise too.
It is. So myself and my daughter this summer, she wants to become a stronger swimmer and I just want to learn how to swim. So one day we go swimming together. She's making fun of me because she's like, for once, I can do something better than you can. And I'm terrified of the water, but it's also about facing your fears.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times you don't do certain things because of the fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of what other people are going to say. Like if she tells me all the time, Mommy, you got to get over your fear of the water. You can do it.
Mm-hmm.
This is now my 17-year-old telling me, Mommy, you got this, right? So the high cost of complacency. And even as I go through this journey and I have these talks, whether it's workshop form or intimate talks, sometimes you have to look at yourself and see where in your life are you being complacent.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not hitting on every cylinder each time, right? This work, your home life, your personal life, your hobby life, where in your life you're being complacent, and decide that you want to make a change. If that's going to make you feel better, if that's going to make you be the person you want to be, identify in those areas one thing you can do to move the needle forward. It's not an overnight thing. It's not. It's work. You just got to chip at it.
Yeah. And it sounds like your health challenges have kind of brought this concept into sharp relief then, and sort of put a hustle on it that you might not have ordinarily had, that you might have been a little more complacent with, as you said, in the
For
past.
sure.
Yeah. But of course, we can't run on all 8 cylinders all the time. As someone who's been living with cancer, ongoing treatment for a long time now, but also being someone who's extremely driven and entrepreneurial, how do you deal with those days where you have that voice in your head saying, I just can't do this today?
Some days I just take the day off. I just do something for me, whether it's laying on the couch, watching TV, watching some show, binge watching. Some days I just have a pep talk with myself and give myself a little bit of grace, and I move forward. Dealing with the critical illness and how it affects how I think, I had to put different things in place, right? Because being on chemo for a long period of time has caused me to have what's called foggy brain. Like I'm realizing that I'm not remembering as much. Sometimes my words are slurred, and that's just some of the aftermath of being on chemo. It could be age, who knows? It could be age. I've been on chemo for 8 years. So I kind of trying to do a better job of structuring my days. Like working on one thing one day and then moving on to something else. The days of me doing 10 things at one time, I can't do it anymore. And part of this journey is realizing what you can do and what you can't do, and what you have to outsource, and when you need to ask for help. So the days I don't feel like it, some days I just don't. I just take a break. I do something for me, or I'll go give myself a facial, put on my favorite lipstick, which is red, and put that face on and power forward. So every day is not peachy. I don't talk a lot about that, but it's not. It's not. And then sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper. Like I've been really tired over the past 2 months. I went to get a full medical panel done. As much as I go to see the oncologist, there's certain things that she doesn't test for that my general doctor has to test for. And it comes back that my B12 is really low. That's why I'm so tired. So now I have to go get some injections to boost me. So being aware of how you feel and having the right team and support in place to help you understand why this is happening is important in everything we do.
If someone in the audience listening today is facing a new cancer diagnosis, rare or otherwise, what advice do you have for them?
Any person who is diagnosed with a rare disease, whether it's cancer or something else, is just getting over the initial shock of it. After you get rid of the initial shock of this is happening, understand the disease in and out. Take notes when you go to the doctor, or take someone with you if you feel like it's a little bit overwhelming. You need to really understand where your disease is and what stage it's in. It's natural for us to want to reach out to others to ask them about their experience, but I think it's important to understand that everyone's experience is different. And others have other underlying comorbidities that may make their treatment a little bit more difficult than your journey, right? It's important to understand the disease, be part of a medical team that you feel comfortable with. If you do not feel comfortable with your current medical team, you have to seek a professionals that they understand you and you understand them, right? I'm a patient that doesn't need a lot of bedside manner or hand-holding. I just need the facts. I need to know this is happening. We're going to do this, this, and this is why we're doing it. And then I take it in, I think it over, I read whatever I can read, and I come back with questions. It's important to feel comfortable with your medical team and they understand how you think and you understand how they think. And just go through the treatment plan. Take notes along the way. That's something I didn't do early on because I was just like, I'm just going to beat this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's important to document how you feel emotionally, physically, as you go through any type of treatment, any type of change in medication, because those things can become important down the road. Like kind of try to keep a journal or even a audio journal. If you're not a big writer, just step by step, understanding your labs, understand how to read your labs, especially the technology age. Everything's on your phone. Everything comes to the patient portal. Understand how to read your labs. I'm not saying you have to be a doctor, but understand how your disease is progressing. What is signs of success for getting your disease under control? Whatever that is, understand what that means. And maintain a positive mind frame. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
You have to find that positivity, right? Mm-hmm. Mind over matter sometimes. Put together a support team that's good for you, which is important. Mm-hmm. All our friends and families love us. They want to see us live. But, the way how certain others deal with when it comes time to critical illness and giving advice may not be what you need. Mm-hmm. Right? And how do you have that conversation with that aunt to be like, listen, I know you love me, Aunt Susie, but when you call me crying, it's not really helping me.
Right.
Right? I'm battling this. I understand we're all scared, but this is what I need right now.
Right. Aunt Susie, you're kind of making this about yourself, not so much about me.
Right. And listen to your medical team, right? And just be an informed patient. Be an informed patient. Doctors are human. They can make errors. You don't have to go along with everything they say. If you have a question, ask the question. Mm-hmm. Be comfortable with what's happening, because if it doesn't go exactly the way you think it should go or the doctor said, you don't want to have any regrets. Like, why didn't I ask this question? Mm-hmm. Always feel free to get a second or third opinion. And that's my advice.
Hey, all great advice. Thank you.
So you got to kind of like settle into it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if someone wants to keep up with you and the work you're doing as a community and patient advocate, what's the best place for them to do that?
They can reach out to me through email, hello@KeishaHickson.com. If anyone in the community has multiple myeloma and they would like to speak and just see how my journey is, if I could offer any advice to you on how I deal with it, any questions you may have. In my journey, I found some people have relatives who have it, mm-hmm. their mother, their cousins, or their spouse. Feel free to reach out to me. You can also connect with me on Instagram, therealKeishaHickson.com. I'll be more than happy to speak with anyone, schedule a call to help out the community. Living with a critical illness, especially one that's incurable, is a scary thing. It's definitely a club that I never thought I was going to be a part of, but I'm here to share my experience as hope that is life during and after cancer, right? It's so much that we can do with the new therapies that are coming through the pipeline, how to live with it. If your therapy is not working, you can switch to another one. There's so many opportunities for us to battle multiple myeloma and other cancers as well, that you have to just be informed. Be informed. Mm-hmm. There's so many resources online, the Multiple Myeloma Foundation, the Health Tree. There's so many positive resources that you can look to for how to cope with how do you feel, whether it be mental or physical. So I'm here to share my journey.
Okay. Well, Keisha, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the show today. We really appreciate you sharing your story with our audience and helping to spread the message of resilience.
Thank you so much, Colby. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, of course. And if you'd like to learn more about Keisha and her work as a speaker and advocate, you can check out her website at KeishaHickson.com. You can also connect with her on Instagram and LinkedIn, also through email, as she mentioned, and we'll leave links in the show notes for this episode so that you can check all of those out. And remember, you can always keep up with the latest in rare disease news by visiting our website at patientworthy.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and more by searching for Patient Worthy on those platforms. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing and leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribing ensures you'll automatically receive our new monthly episodes as soon as they come out, and a review or rating really does go a long way toward helping us out. Finally, if you'd like to share your rare story or perhaps have an idea for a future episode, you can get in touch with us by using the Share Your Story link in the show notes of this episode. That does it for today's episode. Thank you once again to Keisha Hickson for joining me on the show today. And as always, thank you for listening.